everybody, welcome to another Saturday puppy class on Facebook Live. Today we're going to be doing the topic on separation anxiety, so it'll be a lot of fun to go over that. It was something that was requested by one of our Facebook followers, so we'll definitely go over some tips, tricks, and see if we can help your fur babies at home when it comes to separation anxiety if you're noticing that, and also ways to prevent it as well. Again, my name is Gabby. I'm the one at All Creatures Animal Hospital that does all the puppy classes. So I've been doing little segments throughout the week so you can look at previous weeks' Facebook videos to see. Last week we did some stuff on crate training, potty training. The week before we did stuff on health, as far as like vaccines, yearly things that you should be looking out for. So this week is going to be on separation anxiety, so that will be very common topic, you know, something that a lot of people go through, especially with puppies at an early age or maybe later on in life. So there are little things that can prepare your baby for, you know, avoiding any kind of separation anxiety, and also, you know, things that we can teach them to not do, because separation anxiety is a learned behavior. It is not something that they're just born with, and we do it without even knowing that we do it. I've done it, you know, I had a husky that, you know, was a while back, and there were things that I noticed now, actually learning all of these things, that I kind of created a separation anxiety for her, and there were things that I was able to do and change for my last puppy. So definitely some things we'll talk about. So separation anxiety, like I said, is something that is a learned behavior. It's not something they're born with. So at an early age, we kind of talked about this last week in the crate training, you know, getting them doing things like practicing them being by themselves. So, you know, make sure you use your crate to your advantage. So we talked about the setup of the crate and where it should be. So the crate should not be near you in your bedroom. So I always recommend like a den, an extra spare bedroom. If you have a basement available, you know, that's set up that you could put the puppy down there. Just kind of depends what your living situation is like, what would work best. So use your crate to your advantage. So they just need some time by themselves in the crate, and it's not a cruel punishment. I know that with the human emotion side of things, we get super, you know, we feel bad, I guess is the best term, is we feel guilty for putting them in the crate. We feel like we're torturing them or punishing them, and that's not what it is at all. It's exactly like if you would put a baby or a toddler in a porta crib and a regular crib. They're being contained in a structured environment to keep them safe, and it's the same concept for these guys, you know, to keep them safe in a safe environment where they can't get into anything, and it gives them structure as well. So it's a little bit of both. So you're going to have your crate set up, like I said, somewhere else in the house, so not next to you in the bedroom or right next to you in the living room. So have it somewhere where maybe you're not, you know, you're not as visible if you are active in the house, or, you know, somewhere else, you know, like I said, another room, a spare room, anything. So you'll have the crate set up in there, and the one thing, especially when you're starting out as a puppy, give them the opportunity to be in their crate. And even as an older dog, even if you're, you know, a year, 2 years, 3 years old, you can still do this. It's just going to take time for them to get accustomed to a different routine. And they are going to throw fits just like children do. They're going to throw tantrums. They're going to be really loud and cry and carry on, and it's going to make you feel really guilty, but you're not doing anything to hurt them. You're just giving them structure and just teaching them that it's okay to be away from you. And you kind of got to give them that independence. So if you don't take care of it now while they're at a pretty much a younger age, it can create, you know, a lot of problems in the future. We've had dogs with separation anxiety that, you know, may have to go on medications, which isn't a bad thing. That is something that can be discussed with, you know, your veterinarian if that feels the best option. You know, if you've tried doing these things that I'm going to recommend today and it's just not working and you're trying your hardest, you know, medication may be a thing, and doing anxiety medication is totally normal for dogs to be on. So that's something you can discuss with your veterinarian, or discuss with one of the doctors here. And also too, you know, maybe going to a behaviorist. Sometimes there are just other little tricks and maybe more in-depth training, little things that I'm using now are more so at like an early age that you can help and hopefully get through, but some dogs are a little more stubborn and you may need some other advice, so doing that as well may be an option, and we can definitely refer you to a recommended trainer or behaviorist. But hopefully these little things, you know, you'll be able to get through, especially now with us being in these kind of different times where we're home and we can have more patience and work with them a little more. They have the opportunity to kind of break some of these patterns. So the best thing to start with as far as with the separation anxiety, like I said, is the crate. So we have our crate set up somewhere in our home, somewhere where maybe we're not always visible. Like I said, a basement, another spare room, in the living room, den, office, whatever. So you're going to put them in there, and in your schedule, so like I talked about in the puppy talk last week, we talked about potty training and having a schedule. Include in your routine, your daily routine, to have your baby go in the crate for a certain period of time a day. If they're really great in the crate and you just typically don't put them in the crate during the day, but you have them in the crate at night, just give them some time, you know, maybe see if you can give an hour 3 times a day, or a couple hours in the morning and a couple hours in the evening, kind of like a nap time. So you can put them in the crate and let them hang out in there, give them a toy, and let them hang out and just enjoy some time by themselves. So you could do laundry, you could, you know, make dinner, you could clean the house, do whatever you need to do, or even if it's just watching a movie. Sometimes I'll recommend too, put them in their crate while you're watching a movie, so that it's about an hour and a half to 2 hours that they're getting some time in there just to be by themselves, get a little bit of that independence. So then if you put your baby in there and they're not used to being in their crate, maybe they sleep in the bed with you, you didn't use the crate that much when they're younger, that's perfectly fine. So what you can do is you can just slowly work up to a certain amount of time. So maybe do a half an hour in the morning and a half an hour in the evening and kind of get them used to it. The one thing you want to do is always, like we talked about last week, is positive reinforcement. That's the best thing that you can do to praise these guys and reward them for the good behavior and ignore the bad. So if I put my puppy in here, which we have my little teddy bear in here again, and we have him in here in the crate hanging out, and as soon as I leave the room, we start carrying on, yelling, screaming, biting the bars, having a complete tantrum. My reaction is not going to be to go run in there and save Ragnar, is the name I gave last week, my Great Dane I had. So I'm not going to go in there and save Ragnar and be like, oh, Ragnar, is everything okay? And, you know, go and be upset with him. We're not going to do that. So the best thing to do is just to ignore it. So if they're having a fit, I'm going to let him have his fit, give him a few minutes, walk out of the room, and then when he's quiet and he's calmed down, I'm going to go back in there, I'll check, make sure everything's good, you know, we're not hurt, nothing's going on, and then I'm going to leave him again and walk away. Now you need them to kind of have their moment, and like kids when they're learning to sleep in their crib for the first time or their bed and they're crying and having a fit, and you just have to kind of like bite your knuckles and, you know, wait it out, let them cry it out. It's the same concept. They just, you know, sometimes they make really weird noises when they're freaking out, and I think that's what scares people. And it's not, you're not torturing them in any way. They're not thinking it's a punishment. They just have to learn to be by themselves. And the issue is that they've learned to get away with so many things just by, you know, being with you 24/7. If they've never done this before, they're used to being out of the crate and doing what they want. We need to just give them structure and learn that, no, this is acceptable, and we're not going to yell at them. So we're not going to go in there and tell them, no, stop Ragnar. That's not going to help either, because you're just reinforcing the behavior, because all they see is that you're rewarding them for acting a fool versus praising them when they're acting quiet. So ignore the bad, praise when it's good behavior. Make sure you have good training treats. So a really high value treat for them that you specifically use for training is really important to have. So, you know, when I go in the crate, when we go in there, as long as he's behaving himself, I take a treat out, I give him a treat, leave, give him a half an hour, hour and a half, depending on where you're at. Give him some time by himself. I'd go do laundry, work on some schoolwork, whatever I need to do. And then I'd come back, take Ragnar out, and remember, with crate training, the minute we take them out of the crate, we want to bring them outside so they have the opportunity to go to the bathroom. So I'd bring them out, and then we'd go about our day. Whatever our typical routine is, if we're going to go play outside, take a walk, whatever it may be, then we'll go and continue our day. But give them that time by themselves so they learn how to be by themselves, especially with these little fluffy guys, because I know it's so easy when they're tiny. You just want to carry them and have them next to you 24/7 because, you know, they're going to grow up and they're going to get out of that puppy stage, and you only have that for a certain period of time. And I totally get that. I wanted to have my baby on top of me 24/7. I never wanted to let him go. But it's super important to give them this time now so that they just learn that it's okay to be by themselves, because separation anxiety can cause a lot of damage to them or to your house. You know, some dogs end up destroying furniture when they're home by themselves because they're so anxious and don't know how to be by themselves. Or we've had dogs that jump through windows because of separation anxiety because they freak out the minute the owner goes. So that is why it's so important to get them used to this. So like I said, you can do this with any age. Just get a crate, give them some time by themselves. If you struggle with the crate and they're not very comfortable with it, you know, start with a half an hour, 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at night. Do that for a week, and then slowly work up to an hour, and then, you know, an hour and a half, 2 hours, but just so they have that time to be them by themselves. Because you don't want their separation anxiety to hinder your life either. You know, you want everybody to just kind of mold together, and that's the best thing to get them, you know, accustomed to being by themselves and having that independence. So it's not a cruel thing at all. It's gonna sound bad because they're mad and they're having a fit that they're not getting things their way. So, in addition to, you know, giving them some time, another big thing is, especially like I said with the little babies, you know, especially with the big babies, you know, at some point you can't carry them anymore, so they just kind of accept the fact that that's just not going to be a thing. But with the little guys that are typically around 5-10 pounds, they're still easy to carry around. People will carry them, put them in their purse, get a stroller for them. Those are all great things to have. But I always tell people that even though your puppy may be 2 pounds when they come in, still treat them like they're a German Shepherd puppy. You still want to get them to walk on a leash, to be in the crate, to go through the same thing so that they don't get accustomed to being held 24/7, because when they're used to being held all the time and being with you, and then you just throw them in the crate and you go, you know, to shop or something for 6 hours, or you have to leave them for boarding, they freak out because they don't know what's going on. All of a sudden you left. You had, you know, somebody that was holding you 24/7, and then now that person that you know is gone. So getting them used to that and giving them some time in the crate, that will really help. And like I said, praise, 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 rewards, find high value treats so they know they get a treat, and they know when they're good and well behaved, they get a treat as well. And give them a toy, you know, give them some fun toys to play with. So you could do a Kong, which is great. You can fill these Kongs up with just a little bit of peanut butter inside and freeze it. Always make sure that the peanut butter you're using is just a plain natural peanut butter. It's not any sugar-free peanut butter that has xylitol, because xylitol is very toxic to these guys. But put a little bit of peanut butter. If you feed some wet food and kibble, you can combine some wet food in there with kibble and freeze it. And these are great toys that keep them busy. It will make it fun for them. It will last an hour or two. You can get them in different sizes depending on your pup. But these are easily found on Amazon, PetSmart, Petco. But Kongs are a great toy to give them in there. Not so much the ball, but especially, you know, with puppies too, like rote toys where they're teething, these are good to do. And, you know, to make it interesting, get them used to playing with stuff. You kind of have to teach them to play with toys. you want to just rub a little bit of either wet food or again that natural peanut butter in between the creases so that it gives it some flavor, so it makes it more interesting to them. So giving them a couple of toys like that too while they're in there will make it a positive experience. I do get some questions too with some of the clients that, you know, they live in an apartment and they're scared if the dog carries on and they let them cry it out that, you know, they're going to get a complaint from a neighbor and it's going to be an issue, and I totally get that. The best thing that you can do is still practice with them in their crate, but while they're in their crate in the room that you have set up, you can do one of two things. So you can either play some classical music in the background, just very low, and slowly get them used to that. And then as they get accustomed to the music being in there and they don't feel like they're by themselves, you can slowly lower the music more and more to where they're just in there without anything. Or you can also, if you have a TV in the room that the cage or crate is set up in, you can even play some cartoons. So I used to even play some SpongeBob episodes on Hulu and let it run through a few episodes for my pup when I was gone for a little bit, so that there was something going on in the background so he didn't feel like, you know, he was by himself. Some people, you know, they have dog TV on the Roku apps, and I think they have dog TV if you search on YouTube, so you could pull it up on a computer. But sometimes just giving them a little background noise as you get started with introducing them to being by themselves will definitely help lead them into eventually having nothing in the background. Or you could always play something in the background if you feel more comfortable, if it makes you feel better that they have something going on in the background, you can do that as well. So those are a couple of options, but just don't save them. If they're gonna have a fit, you know, maybe let them have a fit for a couple of minutes and then wait until they're quiet and then go in and save them. The one thing I don't want you to do is to go in there when they're in the middle of having a fit and screaming, because you're just telling them that it's okay that they act like that because somebody is gonna come and save them. So that is just one thing I really recommend not doing. But, you know, if you have to break it into smaller increments, you know, I'm just giving, you know, just suggestions. So if you need to kind of alter it to what you think would work best, try 10 minutes at a time, you know, twice a day, and then work up to 20 minutes, you can do that. But if you're consistent with it and you keep working with it, you know, within a couple of weeks or so, they can really get used to being by themselves and kind of help break that separation anxiety. So as far as that, it's really, you know, just keeping them, getting them used to being in their crate, letting them be independent somewhere without you. And then as they get better, you know, you can do stuff in the house when they, you know, get to roam free. If they're not in a crate, you can play music in the house while they're, you know, while you're gone for them. You know, leave toys out for them, and they'll do pretty good. You know, they'll figure out what they want to do to entertain themselves. But that would be the best start as far as the separation anxiety. There's lots of things too that you can socialize them with to get them used to it. So in addition to socializing them with the crate and getting them used to being there by themselves, you know, you want to get them used to just everything that's out in the environment, because there's just so much that we don't think of on a daily basis that they're not accustomed to that we are, and it's new to them, you know, especially if, you know, you end up moving maybe closer to the city versus if you were out in like the country where you didn't have as many cars or trucks going by. If they're getting readjusted to different noises in your environment too, you know, they have amazing hearing. So those could be things too that they just have to get socialized and just have an understanding that it's not going to do anything to them. So, you know, make sure you get them exposed to all sorts of loud noises, you know, vacuum cleaners, cars, trucks, horns, things outside like airplanes, trees moving in the wind, you know, all these crazy noises, things that they hear. And when they do kind of freak out and they look around and trying to figure out the noises, you know, don't go and like console them and say, oh, it's okay, Ragnar, everything's fine. You want to just ignore it and let them have their moment, and then the more you expose them to it, the more they're going to get accustomed to those noises and the things going on around them, so that they're not going to be so anxious or afraid when, you know, they're being exposed to certain things, depending on if you're traveling somewhere and there's just different stuff going on than what you normally have going on in your home or in your neighborhood. Or if you happen to move, you just want to get them to expose to stuff. And again, you want to ignore the bad behavior and praise the good. So when they're just sitting there being well behaved, not even acting like something is going on, you praise them, you tell them they're doing a good job, you give them one of their high value treats, and you don't make any kind of acknowledgement to them freaking out and trying to hide or cower behind you, because then you're just telling them it's okay to act like that, and it's not. So really that's just about it as far as the separation anxiety that I can think of as far as getting them adjusted. It's just routine, having it part of your schedule, being consistent with it, and really just you're really not the bad guy, and I don't want anybody to feel like they're the bad person, but you're just trying to show them some structure in their life, and that's all it is. They just need a little bit of structure, and it's completely okay for that to happen. You're not hurting them, you're just trying to give them a good quality of life so that they're used to things, so that when you do bring them to a boarding facility or you do have to go shopping, they're gonna be used to being by themselves for a little bit, and it's not a big deal. That's really what you're teaching them, is it's not a big deal, nothing's gonna happen, you're coming back home to them, they're not getting hurt in any way. So that's really the main thing about separation anxiety and practicing these little tips and tricks with getting them accustomed to stuff at home and just being by themselves. But back to, I feel like I kind of skipped a little bit, too, with the small dogs, like I said earlier, make sure you're practicing, treat them like big dogs, let them walk most of the time, you should be leash training them if they're puppies, and let them, treat them like a German Shepherd. I don't want you to treat them like they're super fragile little beings, because even though they're small, typically the smaller ones are more alpha than our bigger dogs, so you do want to give them the same kind of structure as far as from a 2-pound Chihuahua to a 100-pound German Shepherd or a 120-pound Great Dane. You still treat them all the same, you leash walk them, you get them accustomed to these things, you get them used to being by themselves so that they're not creating, they're not getting that anxiety that, they're being taught that it's okay to be anxious and have to be by someone 24/7. Because when you do these things and you get them accustomed, I see when I have patients come back, 2 years after we started puppy class, and I recommended, these things with getting them used to being by themselves and treating them, like they're a big dog, and these, Chihuahuas that sometimes, or any kind of small dog may not always be the nicest because they're scared and they don't know, fear is a big thing. And when they're accustomed and socialized to the things that I'm recommending today, it's such an amazing experience for them because they're excited to see us. It's not a horrible experience. They're very well behaved. It just becomes a completely different kind of visit than, a dog that maybe has not been socialized, and, they seem really anxious and scared, and I don't want any of our patients, to feel like that. So, I highly recommend doing these things and getting used to them being by themselves and socializing. If you've, come to our clinic and you've gotten the puppy pack, there is a great thing in there called the Puppy Social Schedule, which just talks about, a lot of different things that they can be socialized, things that we don't think about, umbrellas and just different things that we're used to in our lives that they're not used to. So it gives you a lot of different suggestions. It's a great activity to do with kids, so having kids involved and, picking some of the things that you want to get your baby socialized with. And it's something you can do at all ages. It just may take exposing them a few more times than, maybe a couple times as a puppy. They'd see, a horn, hear a horn or see a truck go by and they're fine. And then they may just, not even care about it. But then an older dog that you're trying to socialize may take a little more time, and you may have to expose them to those certain things multiple times before they're really comfortable with the idea of being around these things. Another thing I do want to talk about that can, will help with the social, more of the separation and just kind of figuring out who's alpha in the house. So I highly recommend practicing a few of these things that helps get them socialized and can also help with them learning that they're not alpha and that you're alpha in the house, which will help them kind of accept that when you're doing certain things that they're to listen to you versus, just trying to get away with stuff. Because I do find that sometimes puppies will attach to one owner, and most of the time it's dad because dad has a deep voice, and then when it comes to mom, because they have soft voices, like I know I definitely have a very soft voice, you try to be stern with them or to talk to them and they're just like, oh, whatever, and they don't even listen to you. And I do find that happens a lot. So getting them to do these few little things is super important to help kind of teach them that they're not alpha. And it doesn't mean that you treat them any less. I spoil my babies all the time. I, want to get them all the stuffed animals, the beds, and all that stuff. But it just teaches them that as far as with people in the household, it's mom, dad, kids, if there's any kids in the household, and then it's dog. A lot of the time, especially the little ones, think that they're alpha and the whole family is underneath them. That's not the way it's supposed to be. So one thing to practice is practicing with them upside down. So you want to practice with them upside down on their back. A lot of the time, if they've never been in this position, you have to kind of work with them, and they're going to fidget and wiggle, and you're just going to nicely reposition them and put them back in there and praise them when they finally relax and they're doing what they're supposed to. Like I'd praise Ragnar for laying on his back, not fighting, and say, good job, Ragnar, and just kind of scratch his belly and do this. If you do this like 10 minutes a night for a couple of weeks, it will really get them comfortable with being on their back. And I do have clients that will say, well, my dog does it all the time at home. Well, it's different when it's on their terms, but when it's on your terms is when they freak out. And I don't want you to be discouraged if it takes you a little bit of time for them to get comfortable, because some dogs, especially if they're more of an Arctic breed, it takes them a little bit to finally give up that power. So it may take a little bit of struggling and kind of repositioning them quite a few times before they finally submit and they accept that they're in this vulnerable position. So again, you're going to practice with them on their back. You can practice with them in your arms. If you have a bigger dog, you can put them in your lap and just kind of let them lay on your legs while you have your legs out. And just give them a few minutes, and you're not going to let them up until they're completely relaxed and they're staying still. And when they're acting the way they're supposed to, we're going to praise them. So we're going to, praise can be just as much, of a reward with us being positive and saying good things and giving them pets is the same as giving a treat. So you don't really have to give a treat. You can just say, oh, good job, Ragnar. And then as you're also doing, having them on their back, play with their feet, get them used to their feet being touched. Play with their ears. It's really good to get them exposed to their ears being touched too. So feet are important, because when it comes to nail trims, if you've got grooming, you want them to be used to that, especially if it's a puppy, or maybe there are some dogs that are older and don't really like their feet touched. Just slowly play with their toes a little bit, get them used to that. Play with their ears. Because it's common for dogs, especially dogs with the more floppy ears, not the stand-up ears, that can have ear infections. So get them used to that, so that if we ever have to do, an ear exam, look in the ears, or get a sample or clean them out, they're used to that as well. You can also look in their mouth while they're on their back, just to check teeth out, look inside, make sure everything looks good, which will be great, because teeth brushing is super important to do. So that is something that is good to practice, looking inside their mouth, so you can maybe start brushing teeth. And then also too, with kids around in the household, or if you're going to be around kids if they don't live at home, but pulling on their tail. So pulling on their tail is a really good thing to do. It doesn't hurt them. You don't have to pull them very hard, but just kind of tug on it a little bit, because what happens is, of course, this one doesn't have a very long tail, but with some of our dogs that have long, fluffy, really beautiful tails, and they're wagging it around, and they go to a kid, a lot of the time the kid sees this feathery, beautiful tail, and the first instinct they have is to grab it. And if the dog's never been socialized or, you know, touched by the tail, their reaction is to turn around and bite. So to avoid those things, it's good to kind of socialize them and get them used to their tail being touched. So it's really just practicing on your back, play with the feet, play with the mouth, play in the ears, and tug on that tail a little bit. So those are really good, but the most important is really keeping them used to being on their back so that they're used to being in a submissive position, and that can really help with training and trying to show who is alpha in the house. And everybody should practice, even kids, you know, if it's a tiny dog, help them to practice, because I don't want the dog to bully any of the kids, or when they're trying to learn and to help at home as far as like training or walking them. It just really helps and goes a long way to have them understand who's alpha and where they need to, where they kind of fall in the line of the family. And again, like I said, it's not that we treat them any less. It's not that we don't care about them. It's just to kind of show them that they have to listen to us. It just kind of it kind of just explains to them again that they need to understand that we're the boss and we're trying to teach them the right things to do. And that's really all we're trying to do, is to teach them manners and how to act and how to be successful in the world. And that's all we want from these guys. So super important. So I hope I gave some good tips and stuff about the separation anxiety topic. Like I said, you know, use your crate to your advantage, get them used to it. This can be from a puppy getting used to it, you know, to avoid social or separation anxiety, to dogs that have separation anxiety to help break that. So keep the crate, you know, have that to your advantage, give them some time in there. You can work up from a half an hour twice a day to, you know, an hour to 2 hours twice a day to get them used to it. Music, cartoons playing in the background can be your friend if they're really having a hard time accepting that they're in the crate. Toys are great as well. So again, the Kongs, rope toys to have in there while they're playing and kind of hanging out for some time. And just socialize them. Get them used to all sorts of noises, things that are in your environment, and just praise the good and ignore the bad. That's the best advice I can give you, is praise the good and ignore the bad. Find a high value treat, may not be a soft little chewy treat, but something that they like, just a small little treat that can be rewarded. You can use your kibble if they really like their food that they get at home. You can even bring a little bit of their kibble that's typically portioned into their meals per day, put it in a little baggie, and it looks like a whole different food, and that can be a great treat. Or just your love is a great praise, you know, just telling them that you're proud of them and giving them love. That is the best kind of reward for them as well, because their really only goal is to make us happy. So hopefully these help. I love to hear comments and for people to bring up topics, so please continue to comment and let me know if there's something I missed or another topic that you'd like me to cover. Next week, I think we're going to kind of go into possibly some training, just kind of very subtle things like sitting, just more of their manners, you know, staying in one place. So we'll kind of talk about that next week. But hopefully this helped. But again, please comment, let us know if you like these videos, like it, share it. I'd love to get these videos out there. It's just something I'm really passionate about, so I'd love to spread, you know, all this information that I give to everybody out there that is having these kinds of issues. So let us know if there's any other topics you'd like us to cover, and if you've come to All Creatures and you love the staff here and you loved your experience, please write a review, because I love to see those reviews, because we try really hard to make everybody happy and to do the best that we can for these guys. So we'd love to hear your feedback, but please let me know if there's any other topics or something else that I missed that you'd like to cover. And I am here Thursday through Saturdays every week, so if you have any questions, you can ask for me, Gabby, the vet assistant, at any time if you have some questions, and I can either personally call you or bring up some of the questions that we have in next week's Facebook Live video. But I hope everybody has an awesome weekend, and thank you, and have a good one.